Go ahead and introduce our first speaker who we can spotlight. And as y'all are working on getting her spotlighted, oh wow, very fast, very much professional. This is Esosa. She most recently was the senior advisor to Stacey Abrams' gubernatorial campaign and is currently the deputy executive director of a little organization called Verified Action. I don't know if anybody's heard of it. Let us know in the chat. It's a voting rights organization founded by Stacey Abrams. She manages the research, communications, political, and organizing teams, and also leads the pro-democracy reform efforts there with a focus on policy reform, combating disinformation, and de-escalation strategy. This is all following her previous work as a campaign manager and chief of staff for a top 2018 congressional election. And before her time in politics, Esosa was a portfolio manager at BlackRock, where she managed a wide array of fixed income products, analyzed monetary and fiscal policy, and led firm-wide research on housing, healthcare, and inflation. She is a native Ohioan and a graduate of Duke University's Sanford School of Public Policy. Let's give a warm welcome to Esosa.
Thank you so much, Jess, the arena, everyone, for reading every single word of that bio. I see you didn't leave anything out. I love it. As Jess said, my name is Esosa. I'm the Deputy Executive Director at Verified Action, and I am so incredibly excited to be here with you all today as you graduate once again from the greatest campaign school in all of the land, the Arena Academy, armed with new skills, new resources, and new friends, so that when you step back into this beautiful, tumultuous, awe-inspiring political arena, that you don't do so alone, but that you will enter as better leaders, more compassionate managers, more strategic risk takers in this work. And because, as I always say, the work is good. The work is fundamentally good, and it is an honor and a privilege to wake up every single day and know that the work you're doing is good, is that you are helping people. So congratulations, graduates. Give yourselves a round of applause for completing another Arena Academy. Hey, and it is also in that same vein, an honor and a privilege for me today to introduce your keynote speaker, who is the one, the only Congressman Maxwell Frost. Congressman Maxwell Frost is the first member of Generation Z to be elected to Congress. The first member of Generation Z. He is proud to represent the people of Florida's 10th Congressional District in the United States House of Representatives. As a former organizer, a former community activist, Congressman Frost has dedicated his life to fighting gun violence, to pushing for gun reform, and working to deliver just an incredible, inspiring slate of progressive policies for the people. So please join me. Come off mute, y'all. Hoot, holler, let's make a little bit of noise and welcome your keynote speaker, Congressman Maxwell Frost.
Oh,
Let's go.
thank you.
Hello, Arena. How y'all doing? Good. All right. It's good to be here with y'all. My name is Maxwell Alejandro Frost, representative for Florida's 10th Congressional District, Orlando, Florida, the place that I was born and raised. And it's just a blessing and an honor to be in this space with you. I feel already hyped up. I heard the woos. I see someone in a cowboy hat. Hold on. Give me a second.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't put it in the memo, but it's hat day today.
There we go. All right. So let me make sure I'm all good here. All right, there we go. My girlfriend's mother gave me this hat, so I wanna participate in Hat Day. Well, first off, thank you all so much for the work that you've done or going to do as folks working on campaigns across the country. I got my start in politics in the professional world on campaigns as an organizer, knocking doors. And it is because of that experience that number one, I'm a member of Congress today, but number two, that I really feel like we just need more organizers in office all across this country. And so either way, thank you all so much for the work that you do. I wouldn't be here without the amazing campaign staff that worked that worked a lot to make sure that I could get here. And here's the thing is, when we were hiring on my campaign, we just hired people I've worked with in the past and friends and people here locally. And now we have a whole new other cadre here in Central Florida of campaign staff because we worked at taking a chance on people who hadn't done it before, which I think is important. I got my start in politics 10 years ago because of the Sandy Hook shooting. I went to an arts middle school and high school. It's a little like High School Musical, except mainly Latinos and Black people. So it's like spicy High School Musical. I was and am a jazz drummer. I studied jazz drums there for 7 years. I like to say, in high school, I was a jock. We didn't have any sports. So like the jazz band was the football team. So, I was walking around with my chin up. But no, before every jazz band concert, my best friends and I would go to this restaurant across the street and load up on a ton of junk food. And I remember we were there eating and there was a silence that fell across the entire restaurant. We looked at each other, we looked around, we looked at the television screens, and we saw that somebody walked into an elementary school in Newtown, Connecticut and murdered 20 children and 6 teachers. And so like seeing that, I was adopted at birth. I was adopted out of a bad situation and I was raised in the suburbs, right? A privilege I had is that gun violence was not part of my day-to-day life. And seeing that on the screen, the images of the children, it put me in a very uncomfortable state, which as we all know, sometimes when you're the most uncomfortable, you do the most learning and reflection. And I remember going to the show that night and I just couldn't play right. Like I kept missing hits. The band director kept staring at me. And the reason why is because I kept looking over my shoulders at the exit sign because I was scared somebody was going to walk into that theater and kill my friends, kill my family, and kill me. And that anxiety is something that's really never escaped me. It stayed with me. And actually, it's with an entire generation now and with people all across this country. I oftentimes say Gen Z is the mass shooting generation. And so I remember going home that night, continuing to think about it. I ended up going to Washington, D.C. for the first time for the memorial for the victims of gun violence from that shooting. And it was there that I had my call to action, that my life was changed. It was the night of the vigil. I remember I was sitting around this, I think it was like a Virginia Days Inn. It was like a Days Inn in Virginia. The pool is in the basement and we're all just sitting around and waiting our feet in the water. It's all the kids who lost their siblings from Sandy Hook and then 15-year-old Maxwell Frost from Florida. And across from me, there was a guy named Matthew Soto. His sister Vicky was a teacher at Sandy Hook. And when she heard the gunshots, she hid the class in the closet and saved their lives, but she was killed. And I just remember seeing Matthew talk about his sister crying and seeing a 16-year-old with the demeanor of a 60-year-old changed my life forever. I mean, I ran straight to my hotel room. I called my mother. My mom just retired from being a public school educator for 37 years, special education. And I remember I called my mom because I thought about her immediately. And I said, Mama, for the rest of my life, I want to fight for a world where people don't have to feel that pain I saw in Matthew, because it really hit me. And y'all know how this work is. You get him for one reason, and then you find out we got a lot of problems, right? And that's really what's kept me in this work. I went straight home, started organizing in the ways I knew how on campus. I volunteered on the Bernie Sanders campaign. And then when I graduated high school, I'm like fresh 18, I get a call from the field organizer that was my boss when I was volunteering. And she said, hey, I'm a regional organizing director for the Florida coordinated campaign. We're going to work to elect Hillary Clinton. Do you want to come and be an organizer in Fort Myers, Florida? We're going to pay you $1,800 a month. And I was like, I'm going to be rich. I was like, I'm going to be loaded with money. Hell yeah. $1,800. Hell yeah. So I got in my car. I drove down to Fort Myers. We all know about supporter housing. I lived with a lady in a trailer for about 8 months. She was amazing, though. It was a little weird at first for me. And that's where I got my start, being a field organizer. I actually moved my college online so I could be an FO and, do college at the same time. And I was like, after this race, I'll just go back and finish. I'm just doing it for this. Well, after the race, I ended up going on another campaign, and then another campaign, and then another campaign, and ended up working about 6 race elections in roughly 3.5 years, because I worked a lot of special elections, and did a few short bursts, and ended up being a field director. And then it was then that I got hired to run the field program for the American Civil Liberties Union in Florida for Amendment 4, the ballot referendum to get people with previous felonies the right to vote. And I can tell you, it was the first time I worked on a campaign where we didn't have a candidate, and I loved it. Not because I don't like candidates, most of them, but because it was just an amazing experience to work on an issue. And have the opportunity to just speak about stories to people about an issue. It was less about Democrats versus Republicans and more about just an issue we could all get behind. And we won it. And it wasn't just the ACLU, it was 22 organizations that came together to make that happen. And then I got hired at the National ACLU to essentially bird dog presidential candidates for about a year in South Carolina, which was a lot of fun. It was a program called Rights for All. Something, yes, it won by 30 points. Something that happened in Rights for All that was just really amazing was we changed Joe Biden's mind on the Hyde Amendment. And that whole program was about recruiting volunteers, teaching them how to pick a question, how to ask a question, and kind of just showing them how to low-key stalk presidential candidates at their events to get them on the record on civil rights and liberties. I remember we were in we were in Columbia, South Carolina. I was with Nina Gray at the time. She was 77. And we were listening to, at the time, Vice President Biden speak. And he was, at the time, for the Hyde Amendment, which, as y'all, if you don't know, the Hyde Amendment is something that keeps many poor working class women and people who can give birth, and specifically poor folks and people of color, from being able to access abortion. So we asked him on the record, we went up to him with our phone, Vice President Biden. Yeah, Kenny Tracker flash. We were low-key trackers. Vice President Biden, can you commit to abolishing the Hyde Amendment? And then he was like, yes, I can. And I looked at Nina, we were like, this is breaking news. This is crazy right here. Columbia, South Carolina, on our phone. Great job, team. And then the next morning, his campaign put out a notice, a press release that said he misheard the question and he was actually still for the Hyde Amendment. Well, now it was national news that he was for the Hyde Amendment. The ACLU, Planned Parenthood, Move On, every progressive organization you could think of came down like hell raining fire and said, Joe Biden, if you want to be the nominee, you cannot be for the Hyde Amendment. 2 weeks later, he gives a very major address and he says his heart was changed. And now he's the president of the United States. That all came from 77-year-old Nina Gray and Maxwell Frost behind the phone. And I always think about that story because I find myself oftentimes, I think a lot of times we have to work harder, especially as organizers, to make sure people understand the power of organizing. And I love just being able to say you can change one of the most powerful people in the country. You can change their mind with just a question, strategy, and passion. But the thing is that during my time at the ACLU, we had collected over 400 videos from candidates. One of the 400 ended up being the one that really made the program worth it. And either way, I just love telling that story. Then after that, I became the national organizing director at March for Our Lives, the organization that came after the shooting that happened in Parkland. And then in early 2021, my friends that I had gotten arrested with and spent the night in jail with after nonviolent protests say, Maxwell, you should run for Congress. I look at them and I say, hell no. And then we go out and we get drinks that night. And that was the end of it, or so I thought. A few months pass, I start thinking about it. I connect with my biological mother. I learn about the beginnings of my life and how she had me at the most vulnerable point in her life. And I decided to run because I heard her story and I heard the stories of so many people across the district who had more faith in me than I had in myself. And this comes to kind of the end of my remarks here. The people who really pushed me to run, my biological mother, my parents, a lot of organizers here locally, but the folks who made me believe that I could win were my former campaign staffer colleagues. that I called in the month before I announced and just laid everything on the table. And that came from the campaigns I've worked throughout the years. And I say that to say that, you know, I remember when Hillary lost, I said the thing that we all say after you lose a campaign, or even sometimes after you win a campaign, never again, right? Like, I'm never doing that shit again. Gonna go look at another career that's like more sustainable and, you know, and everything like that. But I'm glad I never did. And I'm glad I stuck with it, because I feel like some of the most important struggles I've been a part of have come from the campaigns I've worked. And the transfer value you get from working on campaigns, you're able to use in so many different types of organizing. You know, when we were organizing on the streets for Black Lives Matter and more that direct action organizing, I encountered so many people that were part of our leadership group that really had lost hope in all voting and all of electoral politics. And then there'd be organizers from the electoral world that would come into the space and respond to it with no grace, and respond to it with, you know, shaming people. And what I found from that organizing, from also doing electoral organizing, from also organizing mutual aid here in Central Florida, and also organizing concerts, which a part of my life a lot of people don't know is that I used to run music festivals. All these things are so connected, and our opposition is more well-funded and more well-organized than they've ever been. It's no coincidence that we woke up a year ago and half of our country lost one of the most sacred rights, the rights to bodily autonomy. It's no coincidence that we woke up just a couple weeks ago and affirmative action, poof, is gone. That now business owners can discriminate you because of who you are and because of who you love. It's no coincidence that just 2 days ago, the Florida State Board of Education, it's now going to be in Florida textbooks that Black folks that were enslaved received personal benefit from being enslaved. That will be in the textbooks next year. It's no coincidence. It's strategy for evil. And this far right fascist movement that is growing in this country, and also specifically in the state of Florida here, it requires people working on campaigns to prop up morally just candidates who actually give a damn about us. So we can not only just save democracy, not just get a Democratic majority, but get a governing majority. That is what this work is about. And I just want to applaud all of you for doing it, because unless we have good folks working on these campaigns as staff, as organizers, as fundraisers, finance directors, comms directors, whatever you do, we will continue to lose. And it's not just about Congress. It's about state legislatures. It's about school board. It's about taking the chances on working people who oftentimes are not even thought of. My campaign manager happened to also be my campaign manager when I was a field director on 2 races before. We had worked together, and his name's Kevin. He was like, Maxwell, I'm gonna go and we're gonna fucking do this thing. And he just moved, and we did it together for 2 months, no staff. That, you know, kind of thinking when you go to a candidate, I think is really important. So my challenge to y'all is, I know it's kind of hard, you know, because when you're working campaigns, number one, you're trying to pay the bills, and it's a very difficult, stressful thing to be hopping from campaign to campaign. And it's hard to only work for people that you are just fully enthralled with. I get that. You know, I've worked for candidates that honestly I would side eye, and it's difficult. But here's the good news for all good progressive Democratic campaign staffers. The number of true progressive working class champions that are stepping up to run, it's growing every year by a lot. You know, my Democratic freshman class is the youngest, most diverse, and most progressive in the history of Congress. No one talks about it, but it's true. And that gives me so much hope for the future of this country. When the youngest generations, Generation Z and young millennials, voted for Democrats to the tune of 70% in the midterms, and statistics are showing us that we're not getting more conservative as we get older, damn it, we're going to change this country. And it's going to be because y'all have worked at harnessing the power to the ballot box. And no matter how many times you might go online and see even sometimes your own friends diss electoral organizing or politics, what I always tell people is all things work together. Mutual aid, protests, music, culture, voting. And if we drop one of them, the whole ship falls. So we love and respect everyone for their organizing. I appreciate y'all and the work that you do. It's so great to be in the space with you. Congratulations on completing this. I think this is the 2.0, right? Okay, cool. The 2.0. And I'll see y'all out there on the campaign trail. We're going to be very active. We have a year-round organizing model on my campaign. My field director for my election is still on my campaign. We've hired 10 organizing fellows. We'll have 10 year-round, bringing in young people, teaching them how to organize. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for your work. We'll see you up there. Happy Hat Day. Let's freaking win.
Woo! Thank you, Congressman, and thank you to Trinity on the Congressman's team for making this happen behind the scenes. Thank you so much to all of y'all for attending. We appreciate you so very much. We have a few words of gratitude to share with you as we wrap up. So a big thank you to all of our trainers, Dayanara Ramirez, AJ Carl, Charlie Espino, who unfortunately was not able to make it with us, but did a massive amount of prep work on the front end. Casey Moody, Kiana Nance, Justin Singleton, and Caitlin Johnson all trained with us. Our panelists, Natasha Brown, Michael Morales, Maria Javier, Casey Moody, Kiana Nance, Alexandra Buckley, and Liz Luna. Let's give it up for them. Thank you so much to all of them for their work as well. Our keynotes, Esosa, Osa, and Congressman Frost, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And of course, Team Arena, Jessica, Lauren, June, Deborah, Sydney, Santiago, Myra, myself, and Aziz put a lot of work in to make this happen behind the scenes. And most of all, thank you to you all for engaging with this material, for being here with us, and for taking the time to really think about how our movement can be what we want it to be for the future. It's been a blast spending time with you. And that's a wrap on our time together. Get some rest. Can't wait to see you in the field. We miss you already.